Hello and welcome to this new edition of the Foojay Podcast. Let's dive into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Welcome to the Foojay Podcast, all your news about OpenJDK.
Artificial intelligence and ChatGPT are the talk of the town. Every conference has several talks about these technologies, and on Foojay you can find multiple posts about it. In this podcast, we want to take a look at it from the Java point of view. How can we use AI in Java programs or our job as a developer?
Hi, I'm Zoran, and I'm a CEO of DeepNetts, and also it's an AI startup. And also I'm working at the University of Belgrade teaching AI and software engineering. I'm also a Java champion, and I've been involved in the Java community for a while. And together with Frank Greco, my fellow Java champion, I've been working on Java standard for machine learning, that JSR 381 for visual recognition. And I've been involved in various ways in strengthening the support for AI in Java community.
Hi, Frank Greco, and as Zoran mentioned, we are co-authors of JSR 381, which we spent quite a long time in getting that approved. And it wasn't technical issues, it was a lot of the legal issues, the painful legal issues. I run the New York JavaSIG, the chairman, along with 6 other leaders on our leadership committee. I've been doing it for quite a long time. We're the very first JUG ever in existence, going back to the early days of Java. So we've seen it all.
Hi, I'm Roni. I've been a developer for over 25 years. Which I guess makes me an old schooler and enough of a boomer to be talking about AI was kind of, I can't compete with Frank, but still. And I'm the CTO of Digma AI, which is a Java continuous feedback platform.
Okay, thanks for joining this podcast. I'm Frank Delporte, the second Frank in this podcast this case. I'm a technical writer at Azul, Java developer since over 10 years, not 25, not that much experience as you, Roni. Yeah, and I'm interested in everything which is related to AI and what we can learn from it. I think that it's a good thing to start this podcast with really understand what we are talking about. You have artificial intelligence, you have machine learning, you have deep learning, computer vision. There are a lot of terms related to this topic. Can one of you explain if and how they are related or different?
So I guess I can take a stab at it. Not that I'm an expert by any means. I guess Zoran would be the one to give the professional answer, but I'll give the layman's answer as a practitioner, not as a professional. Mm-hmm. And while there are a lot of AI and machine learning is much more accessible now for developers to use to write code that leverages machine learning, I think what we're talking about today is more AI as a dev tool or using AI to become more productive as a developer. And it doesn't matter which type of application you're developing. And in here, I think everybody was, at least around me, it was the talk of the day a few months back when suddenly the impossible happened and we saw kind of a field that we thought would be completely protected from automation and any type of content generation, AI became very relevant for. And I guess what we're talking about is the ability to using simple ChatGPT type prompts, and there are by now, I think, at least four big vendors that offer these kind of capabilities, be able to generate code, and suddenly it becomes an interesting issue for a developer about, okay, what is this new tool in my tool belt, and does it compete with me? Does it make me more productive? Will it replace me? Should I be using it? And it raises a lot of questions because like any tools, it's kind of like, how do I use it correctly?
Mm-hmm. Zoran, you as a professor, can you add things that we should absolutely know about what is AI, machine learning?
Well, yes, to explain it simply, AI is a range of technology, any technology that can do things that have been done by humans so far. But so it's not only machine learning, but the machine learning is now one of a dominant AI techniques. It's a one way to make AI. And why it is so special? Because it is able to learn from data. So you don't program like a rule-based system. You don't hard code all the rules and all decisions and calculations, but it is capable just looking at some process and learning patterns from that. And that's why it is very fascinating, because it allows computers to learn, basically. Now, deep learning is a kind of machine learning which was able to process large amounts of data, and we also process this to learn from large amounts of data, and it was become possible to achieve higher accuracy than, let's say, previous machine learning techniques. So that's when things started happening. And when all the researchers and all the companies started using, because of the rise of accuracy, it was suddenly possible to use it to solve practical problems. And with the progress in technology and the research, there are different kinds of deep learning models that been used for language processing, for image processing, for audio processing, and all the other domains.
So you were saying these language models, so LLMs, I think they're called. That's what's behind ChatGPT, for instance. When you're talking to ChatGPT, I should not say that probably, but you really feel, or you get the feeling that the system understands you, while actually it's just some kind of prediction model. It's just looking for what is the most valuable word that should follow this word. That's how ChatGPT works?
Yes, basically that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing with ChatGPT is, in addition to this classic, the first generation of the deep learning, let's say, it is using something called reinforcement learning with human feedback. That means that during the training, the model is being retrained based on a feedback from human teachers. You build the model, then you give it to some humans to talk to it, and then they provide a feedback how useful the content, the response was, and how to improve that content. And that's how these models are becoming very more and more human-like, because that's a human learning with human feedback.
We are here in the Foojay Podcast, so the friends of OpenJDK. Now, most of these systems seem to rely on C, on Python. Zoran, with your DeepNetts tool, that's really a Java tool for AI, correct?
Yes. So our motivation, because I come from a Java background, I really like the technology and the community. The idea was, hey, we want to do this in Java, because before DeepNetts, I was building Neurov. It is an educational tool for neural networks, and it became quite popular for simple neural networks. And the nice thing was it allowed students who did not have a strong background in AI and mathematics to quickly start to learn and use neural networks. So based on those principles, when deep learning became thing, I've decided to try to build the industry-grade tool for deep learning. Of course, there are some others there available. There is a TensorFlow for Java, and deep learning for J, and now DJL from Amazon. But all those tools, at least to me, they lack this kind of Java look and feel. It looks more like a C API that is written in Java, and also there is also dependency on various libraries in JNI. So it make it unstable, make it sometimes difficult to use. So I want, my vision was to create something that is Java developer friendly, easy to use, easy to learn just from looking at the API, without requirement for deep technical need for understanding the library internals of the underlying technology, just to use it and integrate it into end user Java applications. And also kind of tools, I think the tooling is something that in the entire AI ecosystem was missing. There are many tools being developed lately, but there is still ongoing challenges because it is ongoing research, and many tools are still very, let's say, a low level, very specialized, very difficult to use for average user. And I think there are a number of companies and startups figuring out the way to help users and help developers to create solutions. So not do AI research and not just doing some technical solutions for AI, but for applied AI, building applied AI solutions.
Yeah, building solutions on top of existing AI
Yes.
frameworks. Yeah, Frank, as you said, you've a long experience in Java and long experience also with the New York JavaSIG. That's the official name. So it's a special interest group. I read that it's the North America's largest Java user group.
That's correct. Yeah,
Correct.
We're the first one and the largest in North America. Of course, our colleagues down in Brazil are way bigger than ours, and I get reminded of that when I see that.
I think indeed they mentioned it in the Jug podcast that was talking to the Brazil guys. They indeed were a bit competing with you.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot of evolutions, I guess. Do you also see in the events that you organize now and the attendees how much interest there is in AI and what you can do with it?
There's a huge amount of interest in AI and ML. It's, of course, as technologists, we get concerned about the difference between AI and ML, right? And so the AI is a big thing, and ML is a subset of that, and deep learning is a subset of that. But that's to us, the technologists, right? Now, the people that read the lay magazines and watch, things on streaming and TV, they say AI and ML are the same thing, and we know they're not. But we have to talk to these people, like our management, sometimes, and they don't know the difference. So, like as Zoran pointed out, like AI is matching human intelligence. Whether that's good or not is debatable. But that's what it attempts to do. The interest, based upon the recent ChatGPT, after the 2017 paper on transformer architecture, when the ML world basically got reinvigorated, especially with LLMs, the interest has just shot through the roof. And Zoran and I we were way ahead of the curve. We were talking to our fellow Java champions at Java champion summits, saying that, why aren't you out? We're talking to this. So why aren't you learning machine learning? Like we would get, nobody was interested. Nobody was. Remember, Zoran? We would ask, and there was no interest. And now everyone's interested. And it's just because of the buzz with LLMs and the potential. And as Frank, as you point out, it's a pattern. All it is a pattern matching thing. It's like the average layperson thinks it's an information tool, and it's not. It's not an information tool. It's not a search tool. It's a pattern matching tool, and we have to use it like that. And it shows, it shows glimpses of intelligence, but it's just pattern matching, because we everybody on the planet, we are pattern machines. So it's just showing us patterns, and why we're so surprised by this, it's mind-boggling to me, because we're all pattern machines. And also just with my talks and also Zoran's talks, we're getting hundreds of people in some of the conferences that we speak to, and everybody wants to program this in Java, right? Of course, Python is a fantastic language, but when we first started out years ago, it was the only language, and we said we can't let that happen. And I think we learned a lesson from the web. When the web came out, it was like, this is great, but you can only program in JavaScript. It's like what Henry Ford said about cars. You can have any color you want as long as it's black, right? So I didn't want that to happen, and I don't think Zoran wanted that to happen again too. You cannot express the world's creativity through one portal, through one way. You just can't. It's just, that's not how humans are. So we didn't want that to happen. So that we're trying our best to help the Java community, which are millions of developers, uses this tool. That's a huge gift to humanity.
We're recording this podcast on the day that Java 21 is released. And what you say is competition is what drives the language. The evolutions that we now see in Java are inspired by other languages and vice versa. And that's really the great thing about these evolutions. Also, what you said is very true. It seems to be very new, as ChatGPT has become famous this year. But Zoran, you have been writing articles on Foojay already for a few years, where you were illustrating what you can do with DeepNetts, with Java, in artificial intelligence. Can you give an example?
Yes, of course. So basically, a very simple example is to recognize images, to classify images. So if you feed an image to a deep learning model, it can say what's in the image, to classify image, to put in a specific category. Then also, that's something that's very easy to understand. Next, you can predict patterns and classify data items. For example, if your input data is not the image but like CSV file, and you have examples of monitoring, let's say, server performance, and you want to detect anomalies, or if you want to say whether it is high or low load, but not based just on the simple trigger threshold, taking multiple arguments, you can say to put in a specific category. And also you can, for example, try to predict, which is like a numeric prediction, to predict the value of something. Let's say predict number of clicks or number of users, or the specific value of the server load, or anything else. That's called so-called regression problems in machine learning, which is in human language, let's say, like numeric prediction. So you can predict to guess a value of something. So you don't have a specific formula, because it is usually some complex problem which is not easy to calculate. But from historical data, assuming that the history will repeat, you can build a model that will give a best guess for some set of observations. So basically, these are typical machine learning tasks that you can do with DeepNets, and it is tasks that is covered by this standard Java API. So basically, you have a classifier, you have a regression model, and you have image recognition model. So these are the basic tasks that we started from. And to get to this Java point of view, what we wanted to do with the JSR is to create a kind of collections API for machine learning. Because even if there are lots of different ML libraries in Java, all of them are using their own terminology, their own data set. They require a strong background in statistics, in understanding machine learning. So we tried with this JSR to hide that all under the hood. So we want to provide a simple, meaningful, task-oriented API that can be easily customized and evolved over time. So I think that we have succeeded in that, given by the reactions. By the way, also our friend and author Ken Fogel from Canada, also Java champion, he gave some talks about JSR and gave some courses, and people were very surprised. And some of the reactions were, hey, this is way easier than doing ML in Python, So thanks to that JSR, it is even easier for an average Java developer, who is typically application developer, not numerical computation or statistical math developer, but have like application developer can use ML, and not just to take other people's models and put it, but to customize and build their own models and put into their applications.
And this is all in this JSR 381?
Yes, this is JSR 381 is like a touch point between the end user application and this DeepNetts implementation. We have community edition of DeepNetts, which is like a reference implementation for this JSR. And also there are in a full commercial version, there are tools and much better features, but they are all like free for personal and for development purposes.
So a JSR is a Java specification request. Does this mean that this one day Java 22, 23 will be there included, or what is the future of this JSR?
No, actually, JSR is not about becoming part of Java. It's like a supporting Java for different types of application. It is very difficult to get into the JDK and to maintain it, and that's like more like a JEP thing. But when we talked to the people from JCP and before starting it, they told us that this is probably the best way to go for. So the future of JSR is to get more adoption and to get more Java libraries supporting it. The Python ecosystem is very strong because they are all very close to each other. They are reusing each other. You have NumPy, you have scikit-learn, and of course you have TensorFlow and PyTorch, but all of them are using very, very similar libraries and the entire for data processing, pandas, for graphics, matplotlib, and so on, and Seaborn for visualization and statistical processing. They are all very well integrated. So the idea with JSR is that JSR is that glue that will pick different, put together different implementations of machine learning libraries. And I must say that we had a success so far with it. We have DGL implementing parts of JSR, and also I don't know if there are any else, Frank, at the moment, but hopefully there will be.
Yeah, no, we were very pleasantly surprised when Amazon implemented our API. Somebody over there had written an article, and we were pleasantly surprised. Like, wow, this is pretty cool. Amazon thought it was quite important. They actually implemented the API.
Roni, at Digma, you're using AI to help developers analyze their code while developing. Can you explain what you're actually doing?
It's interesting to see how kind of the worlds are mixing up, even in my vocabulary, because yes, we are using AI to analyze observability and to make it relevant. Because one of the things that we found was that observability as a whole can be kind of like spam. It's a lot of raw data, very hard to sift through. And if it requires cognitive effort, well, it's probably not going to happen often that you kind of sit yourself down in front of a stack of traces and try to find what was different this time with your code run. So many of these kind of types of applications that Zoran was referring to, if it is anomaly detection to understand if something is different, and if it is prediction, if it is being able to cluster the data and understand kind of, okay, well, how can we identify different things that behave the same way or that are groups that are useful to refer to as kind of a flow within my system. Again, sifting through a lot of data. So those are really important applications. And as we were going through the journey of developing Digma, there was also always kind of being conscious of how do we use the right tool for each task. It is very tempting to throw everything at AI, especially in the age of AI hype. And I'm a big believer, and as I'll kind of talk more through in a sec, you'll find me kind of in the camp that is pushing towards as much use of it as possible. But still, sometimes when you're holding a hammer, each problem is a nail, and it is easy to kind of. I have personally seen my own developers in the heat of the moment and in the enthusiasm try to solve mathematical problems or problems that would much be more simply solved with statistics with AI just because they could. So a lot of the times, as in any programming task, it's about how to choose the right approach and manage complexity and all of that. But certainly what we're capable of doing today and much more easily is a big changer in how we approach these problems. Because if before I had to perhaps spend a lot of time just finding developers who could do it or just trying to put together the right libraries today it is more a question of selecting what I want to do than how I want to do it. It's kind of become much more accessible for organizations. The other aspect where we're seeing AI applications is in supporting developers that use Gen AIs in their day-to-day, because Gen AI code is a new type of beast. We didn't have that before. Sure, we had copy pasting from Stack Overflow or whatnot, and a lot of people make the analogy, but I don't think it's a very good analogy because yes, nobody actually would copy paste from Stack Overflow and it would work as is. Like seldom, you would not actually modify the code or kind of customize it. And here is the situation where a lot of code that gets into repositories, that gets into production, was written by this invisible team member that nobody's ever met and that you can't complain to. I have personally seen in our code base somebody add the prompt as a comment above the function that ChatGPT generated. And I saw this and I was happy days. This is awesome. I want to see more of these kind of things. But as it's a bit quirky, but I think it's just an indication of the fact that we're going to see much more of that. I think I recently saw a study. I think GitHub is pushing this a lot, where they found that developers using AI are kind of 55% faster in delivering code or whatnot. And I think that's where we're going to see much more people use it, much more organizations use AI. And where we fit in this context, or what we're trying to do, is to say, okay, we have this code, nobody knows who wrote it. We know less about it because it's kind of this piece of code that somebody wrote. How do we evaluate it? Like, how do we get more data about it to make it safer to use, to add some guardrails, so that I feel less trepidation when I push and pray this code into production after I've generated it. It's kind of like encountering AI in various different ways. And I think the last interesting thing that we're going to see, and I think Zoran mentioned it as well, is the whole area of MLOps. And that's where I think there is a lot of innovation still to be done. And I think we're going to see a lot of tools that are missing today, or that are just being built around how do we evaluate the efficiency, how do we evaluate the cost and optimize it, working with different platforms and frameworks, working with data, working with models. There's a lot of room for optimizations and toolings that I think it will be a very different technology landscape in a few years.
You mentioned that developers can be, the development time to achieve a certain task can be reduced by 55%. On the other hand, I saw a few memes that the debugging time can be multiplied by 4 because it's code that just appeared, so you're not really sure what's happening. So finding a problem inside, is that really a problem, you think? Because you wrote, Roni, a post also on Foojay, where he asked ChatGPT to create a Spring Boot application for you. Were you happy with the result? Was it a good teammate, ChatGPT?
Yes and no. And I've been working on part 2. But I'm just chasing too many rabbit holes. It's just so interesting. I think right now, where the technology stands in terms of kind of saving a lot of time in generating boilerplate, in finding the right interfacing, and seeing a live example that is kind of an extrapolation of other examples, but is very specific to your use case. It can save a lot of time. And especially, by the way, for rusty old developers like me who may go into kind of, I've never used, in my example, I was trying to use the ChatGPT library itself. I've never used it. So kind of seeing an application scaffolding that is very easy to dynamically generate, and having to write less code and more kind of review and integrate it, definitely made it faster. However, ChatGPT, as everybody knows, has been known to very confidently lie and very confidently spew out lines of code that are either nonsense, not compiling, or just not on par with the standard that you want for code that you introduced into your code base. And the problem is it's sometimes harder to know which is which. So throughout this experiment and other experiments, I've definitely run into situations where ChatGPT was giving me an implementation and it was completely false. And I may not have noticed it because either it was, and if you confront ChatGPT about it and say, hey, this isn't what I asked for, and look, and it will acknowledge its mistakes. Some generative AI, some LLMs are more stubborn than others. I've been using Bard as well, and Bard will argue like for long hours. It would argue, and eventually, after admitting defeat, it would say, "Yes, you're right." The point is that I kind of treat it like consulting or delegating a task to a junior developer who's also full of himself. And he would say, yeah, this is the answer. Don't worry about it. So I could either not worry about it and just accept the code into the code base,
Or
probably
review
not a
it.
good idea.
Yeah.
Or I'll need to think about, okay, how do I make sure the code that is being generated has enough, is clear enough or contains enough observability or whatnot, or is something that I can trust. And I think that's kind of the next gap. The other interesting question is what type or how abstract is the task that you give to ChatGPT? In my example, I was giving it very concrete task, build an interface for that, build an API for that. It's another world entirely to say, build an application that delivers this. And this is kind of another kind of step in the level of abstraction where it would be interesting to get to the state where I would say, not build me a Spring Boot application with this API that does that, but give me a Spring Boot application that would allow me to. And then having that be something that's efficient as well.
I heard already that we are, as developers, are safe because for ChatGPT to work correctly, it needs clear specifications from a project manager. So we're definitely safe. Right. Something that never happens. So we still need some development involved. You said a few times trust, which is one thing. A lot of companies don't allow their developers to use ChatGPT or other kind of systems. So this is a very open question. Is it indeed a risk that your question is used again as a training? If you're working with some kind of support tool in your IDE and it's sending back your code to the system, that becomes the training set again? Is that indeed a problem?
That is a significant problem. That is probably the number one reason why companies won't allow their developers to use it. It's illegal, and it's a security issue. By the way, the paper that said that developers are more productive with LLMs was written by a Microsoft researcher. So, you have to find out who's the author and where is the author from. So you just have to be careful of that. It's definitely privacy. I mean, we know the story of the Samsung engineers that were talking about an unreleased product with ChatGPT, and all the information that is now being used in the model itself. So that's not smart to do. Now, Microsoft and Azure offers private instances of their version of ChatGPT, and I'm sure the other companies like Cohere has enterprise versions that are private. This is mimicking the cloud evolution too, right? So there's private LLM. So there's also the legal aspect of using code that's generated by an LLM, because it was trained on things like GitHub. And I've been reminded by several lawyers that it could be potentially in a few years from now that these companies get sued, and you will be sued. So do not upload generated code to a repo that an LLM generated. So because there's legal issues. I mean, as a small developer, yeah, you could do that if you want to take on a risk. But if you're an enterprise, your entire enterprise is at risk.
But how will they prove that it was generated? Is there a clue to find back that it was generated by an LLM?
That's a good question. How they do that? Maybe there'll be an LLM that's used as a tool against another LLM.
That will find back the source, yes. You said you can now start running it in private cloud environments. Are these tools becoming so small and portable that you can just run it on your PC so that you're really isolated?
I think that the evolution is going that way. I mean, all the big companies that had LLMs are afraid of the open source community, and I think they've been public about it too. These things are getting smaller, faster. I mean, DeepNetts code can run on an Android device, and so it's getting smaller and smaller, and we're just on this curve of the usual curve: smaller, better, faster, cheaper. Right? That's a curve we've been on all our careers, and that's gonna happen also with ML.
Yeah, but also there is a big difference in running and building the models, training the models. Training the models, it needs clusters with tens, dozens of GPUs, and that's a whole lot of different thing. Once you build the model, there are models that you can, even open source model that you can run on your laptop. It's not super fast, but it works. And I think what PyTorch and Facebook and Jan LeCun are doing is very important. They are truly open sourcing their models. There's a Llama 2 version available, and it's like a balancing between what OpenAI is doing, basically Microsoft, and providing just a API to use it, and also Bard from Google, but not fully opened. I think these models are really fully open, and you can do it, build the models for yourself, but only if you have a cluster for GPUs, so enormous, and have like 100 data scientists and additional stuff that work for that for a few months, and you can spend a few $1 million for building those kind of systems. So in theory, you can run it or you can use it, but it is very difficult to build it. So the way to go is to customize existing models, and I think this open license that Llama model is available now is like a big step to truly opening this technology to the community.
Is that, for instance, a model that's in DeepNetts?
Well, DeepNetts at the moment does not support that kind of huge models. We are looking for a right angle to go for it. Once we figure out where the things are going. At the moment, DeepNetts, the big milestone that is going to be achieved recently is to provide a really good support for GPU from DeepNetts, and that will make things significantly faster and interesting. But I don't think for DeepNetts is to go to re-implement like a PyTorch from the scratch or something like that, but more like using from the Java in a Java-friendly manner. So we are still looking for the best way to do it, which also depends on the application. And but I would just like to add what Roni and you, Frank, said about this using LLMs for the programming. I think that we are now in the phase when we are figuring out how to use those tools. So not just the tools will not replace programmers, but it will make programmers more productive. So not to completely put the programmer out of the picture, because LLMs do not understand what they are doing, and they don't understand the logic. They just generate text. They are very good at generating text, but they have no idea what the code is doing. They learn along the way, they are improving, but if you need like a human level of creativity, it's still not the case. Maybe what I've been listening is using ChatGPT as a pair programmer, who will help and like delegate some part of the task. But a very simple example, when we gave the ChatGPT prompt to write image classification in Java, it has outputted code in Python, because all the examples for image classifications were in Python, so it uses the Python TensorFlow code. So it has no idea what it is doing, but it looks like kind of it knows what it is. It is very convincing liar, as you pointed out.
I could not agree with that more, by the way. And I think it's kind of a very transformative phase where we're making adjustment both from the technology side and what Frank was mentioning, the organizational or kind of enterprise even side, where we need to learn how to use it. Now it's there, and companies that will not find a way to leverage it will eventually fall behind because it does affect and help productivity. The question is, how do we do that? And I've seen kind of the same debate around cloud, right? When cloud was there, yeah, banks will never use cloud. I was in situation. I was talking to fintech enterprises, and they were like, "No, cloud, us, never." And today they're all there, right? So I think it will just be finding the right compliances, right toolings, right guardrails, and assurances to make it possible. It's not as easy as just starting to use it. And in the same vein, kind of from the technology perspective, if this is to be a dev tool, then it needs a lot more data, a lot more context and automation to make it really into that sidekick, the dream sidekick that we all want to have. So, just working on my example, which was very simple, I was missing a lot of feature. For example, defining code conventions, defining different libraries that I want to use, defining different things that it would be able to study from my entire code base, and then replicate or create for me code that is kind of in line with the other code that I'm writing, using the same conventions. If I'm writing all of my app in reactive mode or asynchronously, please match that in the generated code. Don't let me spend so much time phrasing prompts or be able to automate that part, having the entire project as a context, a lot of different things that would eventually take it 3 steps forward. But I think that one thing that we need to take with a grain of salt, and I don't know if Zoran, you agree with me, but I've heard a lot from different data scientists who were kind of skeptical in saying it's true that we've come from like 0 to 80 very quickly, but the last remaining 20% to make this perfect tools are also the hardest ones to accomplish. So
Yes.
it's not a simple case of linear growth where we said, oh, right, we did this in a year. Let's imagine where we'll be in another year. Progress might be slower because the problems that we have remaining are also really the toughest ones that were very difficult to solve.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. But that's the case with every technology, it's always the last 20%, or maybe even less 7 or 5%. I mean, we got transformer models like first paper in 2017, and like first model from OpenAI, right, when 2021, and 5 years later we have something that everybody's using and talking about, and it's completely going to change. So I think in the next 5 years, it will definitely, some of those problems will be solved. There is a open question: is it possible to solve? Because the so-called hallucinations, they are bugs. It doesn't work as expected, and it is difficult to figure out why. So more technology state and the research about explainability, and how, as you asked, how do you know if anybody has used some data for training, and how much data do you need to make impact to it? If you turn a huge amount of data, usually you need a huge amount of data to change something, to find patterns that dominate. So no, there are lots of open questions, but I think they will definitely be solved.
We're seeing now with hallucinations. I mean, I think the early LLMs hallucinated quite a bit, but there's been a lot of work in prompt engineering. I mean, that's arguable whether it's engineering or not, but it's prompt engineering. I mean, I've seen prompts that are like 10 pages long, and it reduces the hallucinations, but that's a lot of text to be sending with every query to the LLM. But there is a lot of research going on in prompt engineering and fine tuning of models, and we're still at the start of all this. I mean, this is a fascinating area. It's one of those in your career, you get a chance to ride waves in your career. This is one of those big waves, right? You kind of looked at Web3 and crypto. No, not really. So I want to ride this one. This is the big wave I want to surf in, right? So it's quite exciting. We are at the start. My concern about all this, I mean, yes, we're talking about it from the technical aspect, but there's the other aspects. I mean, there's a legal aspect, there's a societal aspects of this. This will put many people out of work. I mean, this is undoubtedly will put a lot of people out of work because it will make companies more efficient. Will we have a lot of big companies in the future or many smaller companies because the tool will be available to a lot of people? That changes things, that changes employment, that changes people's lives, that changes countries' directions. This is a pretty wild time to be alive in this field because it's not just like about where a semicolon goes in the language. This affects like geopolitics. So it's a pretty exciting invention. And it's not really something. I mean, certain Zoran's been working on it for quite a long time. I mean, my graduate project was Zoran and I are musicians. So my graduate project many years ago in a distant galaxy, far away in a distant galaxy, was looking at melodies and generating original melodies, but in a certain style. So I didn't use embedding a vector database to do this. I just basically had a tree of probabilities, but that was generative AI. So that was many years ago. So it's not exactly something brand new. It's been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, it probably goes back into like the 40s and 50s. So some of this technology, but my worry is how do we help the people that are not technologists, that are not like us, right? That's my worry.
And also what we hear is developers will not be replaced by AI, but will be replaced by developers who can use AI.
Exactly.
That developers will disappear, that has been predicted already a dozen times in the last years with each new technology and each new no code and what do we have seen in the past. But it's really starting to use the tools that become available and learn how to use them and make them the best profit for yourself.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the worry about this AGI and super intelligence and maybe it's something, beyond AGI. If you notice that the people that are saying this are all computer scientists, I think it's very egocentric for our own industry, for us to be the only projectors of the future. I mean, we're talking about languages here with LLMs. Why don't we get linguistics and psychologists and other people in other areas who are also experts in their domains talk about the future and not us who invented these things on talk about. I think it's a little egocentric of us to do that.
Yeah, that's really a topic for our next podcast is get some people involved who are not indeed software engineer and how they experience the whole ChatGPT and other evolutions. What can we look forward to as Java developers? Will we see new libraries appear, new technologies in the JVM? What do you see in the next years that will help us to use AI?
Zoran, you want to mention Panama?
Yes, of course. The Panama is being announced like a big game changer that will solve AI for Java, and it is the case, of course. But to some extent, Panama is just the first step, making it possible and not painful to build AI application top of JVM. But I think it will take some time for that to happen. So to build entire ecosystem of libraries and tools that will be using Panama. And again, even if something like that appears, I think the things like JSR that we initiated for machine learning is essential for bringing them together. Because if that ecosystem stays fragmented in the same way that it is now, there is no way to evolve and make further progress because Python ecosystem is really ahead of everything that is available in Java. And as you can see, all the latest innovations is being built with Python, right? So ChatGPT is built on PyTorch, right? So I think that and not only the technology they're using, all the research is being carried on those tools. So it's not just the libraries, but it's all the tools around those libraries, existing tools, and all the developers and the researchers and new innovations that are being built, they come from that ecosystem. So it will be difficult to compete. So maybe not the way to go to compete, but to find the best way to play along with, and maybe to some users it is enough to be able to use those models from Java, just to call maybe from REST service, or have like a simple Java class wrapper that will talk to some other library. But I think for Java, in order to stay competitive and innovative, and what it has been for like previous 2 decades, it needs to find a way to run and build and innovate AI on JVM.
We already mentioned that we should next time involve some other people from other industries. There is the whole discussion, for instance, about art, generating art, which is also trained on existing images and painters and all that stuff that artists have made. Is there something more that you think about this topic?
Yeah, I think, first of all, there's definitely a lot to be learned from other industries here, because they're dealing with these same questions. So in the same way that I often advise developers to look at how other, let's say, programming languages deal with certain problems and what type of abstractions they produce, it's very worthwhile to see how other kind of professions are dealing with this new found capability and how they are handling it. I've seen designers that are completely freaked out by the fact that Midjourney can create these amazing results, but then at the same time, Midjourney is not enough. And as much as prompt engineering is amazing, there is still a way to go, and there is still a lot of thought and crafting and iterating. And you mentioned that about software projects, and software projects have so much communication in them and so much kind of figuring things out that, like, I hope I'm not making kind of a we'll never need more than 160 characters, or 640 kilobytes is enough type of prediction. But I don't think like the software developer profession is going away, at least in the next 5 years. I think we're safe. I think it's more a matter of how do we use it in the right way. And indeed, graphical designers that are today not using ChatGPT or Midjourney or something to get, I don't know, a draft faster, or to get some sort of concept to iterate on, are just falling behind. And I think in the same way, and this will take some time, and the industry is conservative, at least the big companies, and it will take some time to get to that stage. But we all need to see how and where it does help us, and where it does. It's kind of like a natural evolution to start using it and see how it can improve our work. For example, for me, it's been a while since, and maybe it's devolving my brain, but it's been a while since I've worked on a regex, because ChatGPT has become my regex friend. I just describe the regex that I want, and immediately it's there. It's something small. It's not as grand as creating a Spring Boot application to work with an API, but it's a big productivity boost. That's why I think kind of it's definitely worthwhile to see how we can learn from other industries, how we can use it, understand that the profession is evolving, and I think it's a super exciting time to be kind of a part of. I'm also reminded of examples from our own past in software development. I remember people said, yeah, testing is going to be obsolete with test automation. It wasn't. It became something else. We started having automation engineers, and testers learn to balance manual testing with other techniques. And I think we're at that kind of a stage now.
It's ironic, Roni, that you mentioned regular expressions. Like, regular expressions were invented to experiment with ML. Right? That was the original motivation for inventing Red, and now you're using it in reverse.
So actually, the circle is round.
Yeah. Well, but one thing I should point out, as since Zoran and I are musicians, you read about how this is going to create music and create art. That implies that the machine has emotion, and I don't think that's true. So yes, the graphic artist, yes, okay. I wouldn't tell my child to be a voiceover actor at this point. But music, that implies music is the expression of emotion. So if LLM is generating music, that means it has emotion, and it doesn't. So I think we got to be careful.
Emotions are patterns? As you said, everything is a pattern, right?
And that's the conclusion of this Foojay podcast.
That we next time need a philosopher in this podcast. Okay, maybe we just need to set an appointment in 1 year and 5 years and see what has happened, because it is evolving very fast, but indeed taking those last steps to achieve a perfect result. That last 20%, that will be the hard part to take.
What if we all look like the Borg at that point?
Yeah, I'm already shopping Amazon for a nuclear shelter.
Thanks a lot for joining this podcast recording, my guests. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Keep an eye on Foojay for future articles and podcasts about development and everything related to the Java world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Give me a Foo, give me a J, give me the friends of OpenJDK.